Hi, I'm Tom Rue of the Kauffman Foundation, and welcome to the 2013 kickoff edition of Top of Mind. Welcome to the 2013 kickoff edition of Top of Mind. I want to start this edition by reminding viewers why we started doing these podcasts in the first place. Mostly what we want to do is share with our viewers and the broad entrepreneurial community things that are affecting the world of entrepreneurship from many different angles and facets, and hopefully touching on points of interest to you all. But that said, we don't want to assume that we know what's of interest to you. So I want to remind our viewers that we want to hear from you. As a matter of fact, I'm going to put it out there right now. If you have ideas that you would like us to touch on with these episodes, talk about, and provide feedback to, please send me an email at true, that's T-R-U-H-E, at Kauffman, Kauffman.org. Let me hear from you on topics, and we'll be sure to feature those in upcoming episodes. So for this episode, I really wanted to put out there three big ideas, some of which we touched on last year, but we're going to definitely continue bringing to viewers of interest this year. The first one was academia. You know, we had a whole episode dedicated to this last year on how the world of entrepreneurship education is changing, not only on college campuses, but third parties and new players and new entrants into the marketplace. It seems to be quite the topic du jour of interest, and we certainly are very enthusiastic about what's happening around entrepreneurship education. But on a broader context, academia itself is being really impacted by things like online trends. These courses that are not affiliated with a specific university, ones that are offering education in kind of an a la carte, just-in-time mode. We saw, I think, just the tip of the iceberg last year on new offerings like Udacity, Udemy, edX, but there'll be certainly many more to come, and you can rest assured that we'll stay on top of this. The one area of interest to us specifically in academia is around community colleges and how they are starting to serve as, we feel, kind of the center of regional ecosystems around entrepreneurship, and the practical focus that they have and the ability that they have to provide education and training to aspiring entrepreneurs. We've done some grants in this area for those of you who follow the grant work and history that we do. We've spoken to this topic at various national conferences, and we'll continue to do so for 2013. So stay tuned to good things coming in the world of academia. Another trend we're going to watch with great excitement in 2013 will be crowdfunding. I mean, simply put, it doubled, in 2012 and from the prior year. The genie's out of the bottle, and that's a good thing. And I think equally good is the fact that the SEC is getting involved for us to kind of codify the process, put some rules and parameters around it, because, let's face it, folks, it's an innovation. It's a great innovation. It's going to help democratize access to capital for entrepreneurs around the world who would, historically never have access to the types of resources they need to go to market. But that said, there's going to be bumps, and we should anticipate that. We should, not overreact when those bumps happen. That's a reality with all breakthrough innovations. So, I like to kind of inoculate the dialogue, the public discourse on that by putting that out there up front. Because in most cases, when you do that preemptively, reasonable people can say and shake their head and say, yeah, that's to be expected. When you don't give that a little bit of a forethought, what happens is when the first thing happens, there can be a great overreaction that can then, thwart the growth and lessen the impact that it can have. So, let's expect some bumps along the way, but let's encourage this. And to the extent that you want to be heard on this, the public period, I believe, has been extended for comment. There's a lot of bright minds that are looking at this, but I think 2013 is going to be the big breakout year for crowdfunding, and the entrepreneurial community at large is going to benefit from it. So stay tuned, because in these episodes we will have updates on that. The third big thing that we're going to look at this year, and again, I want to give credit where it's due. It was the New York Times that really, I think, did a great job to articulate a growing problem in this country, and it pertains to kind of policy and practices around what is broadly described as economic development activities, and more loosely defined as border wars in economic development terms. And that is communities and states and counties and cities around the country that compete with one another to attract, and I would say attract is the polite word of saying steal, existing firms from one borderline to the next, in an effort to be able to take credit for or count jobs, or to be able to state that I've done something for economic development in our community. And I have to tell you, as I reflect on this, and I read this great piece by the Times, they did a phenomenal job at actually chronicling. They made a database of over 100,000 collections of these types of incentives that were offered through economic development activities. And I need to be clear on something. I'm not indicting this whole practice. There are millions of dollars, billions of dollars, frankly, that go into very useful economic development efforts, to start entire new industries, to support technologies that have great hope for humanity, great economic opportunity for expansion. But a lot of it goes into simply trying to entice, a large established company to relocate, and give tax incentives that do that. And for my take on it, it really seems like, we're racing to the bottom on this. For example, think of one community, let's say on a state borderline, that goes ahead and is successful in bringing a company across the state line to theirs, and they offer up let's say a $40 million incentive package to do so, only to have in the very next year the budgetary requirement to cut, let's say, $36 million out of their education budget. And by the way, this is not an arbitrary example. If you read the story, you'll see which one I'm talking about. I don't want to give you the spoiler alert. I'll let you read the story and figure it out. But the question I have for you, for those corporate citizens that are doing that practice is, what kind of educational system do you want for your employees that make that move with you? It seems to me like an uncommon way to really spur the kind of activity, the economic growth that you want in your community. So imagine, if you will, and the other part that I got very excited about is the magnitude with which this is practiced. Namely, over $80 billion a year go into this in giveaways, in taxpayer dollars that are subsidizing and incentivizing corporate moves and things of this nature. Imagine if we took some small percentage of that, let's just say, I don't know, amongst friends, $20 billion, and we could plow that into things that nurture and encourage startups, new companies, so that we have genuine economic growth, organic economic growth, that isn't at the expense of another community. Because that, after all, just moves the problem from one side of a border to another. There's not a net growth opportunity there. If you want to generate genuine new net wealth in this country, there's only one way to do it, and that's starting new companies. And we know, and we've published lots of data on this, that it is the startup activity, the new company formation, that create the bulk of the jobs in this country, that create that new tax base that we so desperately need. So you can expect a lot more from us on this. I'm hoping in a later episode to have a roundtable around this discussion, so that hopefully we can start engaging policymakers around this topic and encourage them and give them something else to think about investing in, to the good of expanding entrepreneurship opportunities for everybody, the community at large. So those are the three big ideas for 2013. Of course, we'll cover many more in subsequent editions, but look for more stuff on academia, crowdfunding, and border wars. And as I said at the top of this episode, I want to hear from you. So please don't be shy. Go ahead and use my email address. Let us know. Feel free to contact anybody on staff. We want to make this as interactive with the community to the extent that you're willing to participate. So please feel free to jump in. And thanks, and let's hope for a great 2013.